What's going on, everybody? Excited to talk some Saturday hoops. As always, joined by my boy Glock. Another short three-gamer, but a little bit more fun of a slate than last Saturday. Last Saturday, I felt like we talked about Pistons Magic for like 20 minutes, and I'm more excited to talk about hoops on this slate with you. And on top of that, we've got some nice UFC fights going on midday. How's your day going?
Doing good. Like you mentioned, obviously sweating out UFC right now. Pretty good midday card. We kind of talked about it before we hopped on, but pretty jam-packed with a lot of good finishes so far, highlight reel finishes. So it's been fun to watch, and obviously sweating the early slate as well. And, now we have this 3-game main slate. I mean, we keep talking about it, but it's like, man, I wish we could get like this mid-size 5 to 6 game slate on a Saturday that we could talk about. But, we just got to talk about what we have at hand. So, excited to talk this 3-gamer with you. And yeah, I think it looks a lot more exciting than last weekend's, I would say. Well, I say that, and then we have a similar matchup as last night, Memphis versus Portland, which we'll talk about first, that blew out. So hopefully, this time it doesn't blow out, and we can actually get fantasy production from both sides of the equation from Memphis, Portland. But yeah, excited to break this down with you, Bobby.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited that we actually have late swap too. I don't think there's gonna be like a ton that we need to, but Jamal Murray's questionable. I tend to think that he sits out in this one just because he sprained his ankle pretty recently. But yeah, I definitely am glad that we've got late swap back, and I hope we
Let's
don't
talk
do that
about that a
again.
little bit. Because, man, I think, what was it last night? I obviously wasn't impacted. I think Luka was my spend up, and he was questionable, but I expected him to play. It was a national television game against Boston, and I mean, I guess Ant Edwards was questionable, and De'Aaron Fox was questionable, and those are like, if you invested into those dudes, like, they were so low owned, but obviously, they got scratched, like De'Aaron Fox specifically, and so whoever played Malik Monk, like, obviously just printed. 6th man of the year for sure for him. And then Ant Edwards, the weirdest thing ever. Like, you played him, he was in, but then left at halftime for personal, to leave for the birth of his baby. So yeah, it was interesting. Obviously, I wasn't affected personally, but in the Discord there was definitely some people on Fox and Edwards. I know people that MME definitely got exposure there, so you were 100% impacted. So yeah, I mean, we'll see. I don't know what the collective feedback would be. I haven't really heard, like, I'm not on the council like you are, so I'm kind of curious on your thoughts of it, on if there was like positive or negative feedback from last night.
Well, one of the main guys that I've got a contact with at DraftKings said that my protest vote didn't work because the contest ended up failing. I jokingly said to one of the main guys over there that does like contests, I was like, I hope this overlays and you guys don't ever do this again.
That's funny.
So he gave me some shit because it did end up obviously filling. I went from, again, like I said, I'm not a fan of it. I don't like it. I don't like that we're changing the rules partway through the season. Like, I think that it's a lot more fun to be able to, especially like people that play like 1 to 3 lineups. It's not even as much from like an MME perspective. Like, I do more MME in the playoffs with some of the shorter slates and just based on some of the lock times and stuff. Having a little one that's, geez, I couldn't handle all like MME and MMEing every single night and doing like that many late swaps and different stuff like that. But I think it's more so like, even for if I've got 20 or 50 teams, like last night I went from thinking, all right, fine, I'll still do 20 in the main $4 to, all right, I'll do 50 to 75 teams. And I don't know, I like about MMA that you do just set your lineup and walk away, but I just think it's a totally different sport. Like, if you, especially if you have one team too, I mean, it's like the inverse for MMA. Like, I don't think that it's fun that like to have the setup where, okay, now all the like people that are gonna do a bunch of late swap stuff are gonna optimize after every single fight. And I think a lot of those people don't want to do that either. So I thought it was terrible for MMA. It obviously didn't last. And for NBA, I just, if you have one lineup and let's say, you're playing even like Daniel Tice or something like that. I know he wasn't on the main slate, but let's say Plumlee starts over him. It's like, okay, cool. I can't switch Clipper centers, like just little stuff like that, especially if you play like 1 to 3 teams. It's just such a terrible user experience if you end up taking a 0 and like you get that news with time to spare.
Yeah, and like one example I'm thinking of in my head, because I also play one lineup per night generally for single entry stuff. Like, before, I forget which news hit. I think it was Donnie Mitch out or something like that. I was planning to play Lamar Jackson in hopes that maybe Memphis doesn't start Trey Jameson.
Yeah.
Because I didn't think his size would be that needed versus Duop Reith. I think they could have totally started Santi Aldama and then started Lamar Stevens at the 4. And so in my core, I actually had Lamar Stevens like until I'm pretty sure it was the Cleveland news hit, and then I had to adjust and kind of get Evan Mobley in there. But yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you. It's like it takes away a lot because as a hand builder, like / opto user, when you play one lineup, you can plan in your head for the late news and be like, hey, this is the 3v3 that I want to move to if person's out, And I think that's an advantage for a single entry person versus, someone that just uses the optimizer because, if you're not that versed in the optimizer, like you won't know which players to bump up, because there's some people that play NBA and just optimize and have no clue about NBA, like DFS, and like it's just all projections based. And so if you don't know like who to bump up when this guy's out, like they're all relying on the projections. And then, if you can't late swap, then it doesn't really matter. Right. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I'll be interested to see like what they decide going forward, but yeah, I'm excited. This one is late swapping for us for sure.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think if you want to do like no late swap and you still want to get your NBA fix, like I don't know. I guess like there's not a perfect solution. Maybe they can do like a separate like contest for no late swap. Obviously the prize pools aren't going to be as good, but if you just want to set it and forget it, like that is what it is. I ran a poll. I think it ended up getting like 400 votes or something like that, but it was pretty split down the middle. It was like 49% hate it, like 46% like it, and then like 3% or 4% or whatever voted like other, had a different opinion or something like that. So it's pretty like split down the middle. It's definitely a controversial topic.
I mean, like how many times this year, like I don't know, maybe because I'm like losing a little more this year. It feels like more oftentimes than not, the people that set it and forget it, even with late swap, have like benefited this year. Like there's a lot of times where you do make the swap. And let's say like let's say you do expect Trey Jameson to start and then he does start or he doesn't start. And then you play the other starter and the other starter sucks, but then Trey Jameson comes out the bench and nukes. Like that's happened to me. I feel like so many times where I reacted to the late news and it hasn't necessarily worked out for me while the people that, maybe got busy around that lock time or something like that, stayed on the initial play and like he printed. So I don't know. It's tough for sure. And so, obviously our objective is to help you guys no matter what the scenario is. And, we're going to definitely do our best no matter what, if there's late swap or no late swap.
Yeah, 100%. If DraftKings switched it to being no late swap as a permanent thing, I would consider taking most of my action to FanDuel in that instance.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
personally.
for sure. Yeah. I think we've talked about that a little bit. I think Mangona said that too, but yeah, I mean, we just got to play the game that we're given,
Yeah, Mangone loves the dual low key.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. Like I've had like most of my biggest hits on there. But that was generally when they were running like that $3, like kind of what DK is doing now, like the $3 to $4 to $5, 150 max, 100K up top. Like they were running that every day almost like 2 to 3 years ago. And then, gradually, they've strayed away from their DFS product, it feels like. And then it's become like, $6, $7, $8. Some nights it's $15. So
18
that's
bucks
when
a
I've kind of
night,
strayed
20
away.
in the playoffs.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like, man, the $3 to $4 buy-in 150 max is just the nuts. And I feel like, who wouldn't want, if you're trying to bring in more casuals, who wouldn't want to put in $3 to win 100K? I mean, I saw someone in RPS put in $9 or $12.
12 bucks last night in the main lake contest. They did a $4 one for that too. 30 racks.
30 racks. Like, if you're a casual, like, why wouldn't you want that opportunity? Like, I know it doesn't seem like much, but like $3 to $15, it's a big increase. And especially if you want to play multiple entries, it adds up. So yeah, I think that's something DK should consider, maybe rather than, getting rid of late swap.
Oh, 100%. I think that would draw more people in too and feel like you've got a fighting chance. I mean, it's a lot more reasonable for a average person to throw in 20 lineups in the main contest for 80 bucks. And like, if you do that every night, like most of the time you're probably gonna make, 30 bucks, lose like 15 bucks one night. Like you're probably like not gonna lose your ass most of the time. And you still have like the upside for 100K up there. Like I think the feedback to that's been been positive. It's a big difference, even if like you're talking about doing 20 teams, and the difference between having $80 at stake versus 300 plus bucks at stake to even have like 20 teams in the main contest every night.
Exactly. 100%. Yeah. And I mean, I know like all over DK yesterday, it was like, their way of advertising was set it and forget it, But like, what sounds better? Set it and forget it, or turn $3 into $100,000. Like, I just think from an
Well,
advertising
they
marketing
love
perspective.
up top money.
Yeah, but like it's
Yeah, they
fine. Like
love
$3
advertising
into
that part.
100K, it's like it just sounds so much better than set it and forget it. At least that's my opinion. But it is what it is.
Yeah, I think they're listening to that too. Yeah, like you mentioned, I'm part of like a group of folks that have some direct contact with DraftKings on feedback on some of this different stuff, and they've definitely been listening to what people have to say on Twitter and some of those different conversations. And the feedback on the $4 contest has been good. Don't be surprised to potentially see it in other sports sometime soon. I'll say that you might see like a PGA or something like that with $4 main
Yeah.
contest with 100K up top.
Yeah, the more contests like that, the better for sure. For sure.
I mean, NFL, you could run a $15, $25 one, like one of those plus a $4 one with like, I don't know if you can get to a milli up top, but like, I mean, they've run that $5 one. You could probably do something like that, like during the
Dude,
regular season
the
for football
the
too.
field size for that would probably be massive. Imagine a $3 milli maker for NFL on a Sunday. It'd probably have like 500,000 people in it, most likely.
I mean, they've got like a few 100,000, I think, in that $3 20 max they run every single week. Like that one's insane. There's like a $5 MME one that's like 50K up top, but
Yeah, for sure.
possibilities are endless. Should we talk some hoops? Talk about a rematch from last night? Do it all over again? A little Groundhog's Day action?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. We've got Portland and Memphis again. Memphis is going to be at home. So it's going to be a repeat of last night. I know this game was not uh, kind to me last night. Also, I've had a bunch of Ant and Scotty Barnes and ended up with these amount of Russell Westbrook last night. So I don't know. I had a bunch of people that like broke their hand or had some type of like weird thing where they left the game. So late swap wouldn't have helped me there, but real low total in this one. These are two of the lower paced teams in the league. 209.5 total. Memphis is 1.5 point favorites at home. So although it was a blowout last time out, Vegas thinks this one's going to be close. I tend to agree with it. I know you wrote the playbook up today, Glock. What are your thoughts on this game? And it sounds like you're probably going to be willing to go back to this one too.
Yeah, man, for sure. And all year, it's felt like Portland chalk has been a struggle. Memphis chalk has always been a struggle all year. It feels like last night the spread was close as well. I think it was like -1 or something like that in favor of Memphis also. But obviously, we all know how that went. It was the weirdest game ever. Like you said, it was a blowout, 122-92. Trailblazers won on the road. Jabari Walker and Delano Banton were the main guys that smashed off the bench for Portland. The one starter that did well for Portland was Duop Reith, and I think obviously with no DeAndre Ayton, he's in play again. While Jabari Walker will be his pivot. Today, it actually looks like Jabari Walker is coming with ownership, so you won't get him that low owned like you would yesterday. But I think both are strong plays. Reith played 23 minutes last night, and it was a blowout, so he does have the upside for higher minutes, which I like. So you have to like Duop Reith. Ant Simons, Jeremy Grant, those two had two awful stinker games last night. But like we said, it was a blowout, so they didn't get their run in the fourth quarter. So you have to like them again. I think this game, though, believe it or not, like I think some of the viability, like I would like it a lot more if we get Luke Kennard and John Conchar in. I know it sounds kind of wild that I'm kind of depending on those two guys, but there's a lot of lack of talent on the floor, especially on the Memphis side. And anytime you can inject some talent in and play some of these dudes like Luke Kennard, he's only 4.5K. I think he would be a little too cheap for the role that he have if he starts. If they continue to roll with Jordan Goodwin, obviously he becomes a strong play as well. But those Q tags on the Memphis side are what I'm looking after. And then on the Memphis side, like I said, on the Portland side, Jeremy Grant, Ant Simons, you can't go wrong with them. Duop Reith obviously is probably a little too cheap for the role they don't have. And then off the bench, I would say Jabari Walker is my favorite play on Portland.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts as you. I wonder how much the field like I don't know. I feel like Jabari Walker and Delano Banton are a little bit of chases. Like they definitely benefited from blowout run. I mean, Jabari Walker shot 7 of 9. I mean, I think that like Banton and Walker are both in play. I think I have a slight preference on Banton. I think he's going to be a little bit lower owned and he's a little bit cheaper as well. So I don't know. Like Walker should still play decent minutes in this one, even off the bench. Like should still play like low 20s to maybe mid 20s in minutes, especially if he like picked up even a few minutes of like blowout run at the end. Either if either team were winning big at the end. So I don't know. I think that the cheap guys are okay on Portland. I'd say the same thing about Camera. Like I think that him at 4.2K, like he's fine. Like I'll probably get some exposure to some of these cheap guys on Portland, but I don't think that they're like amazing plays, and I'm slamming them in. And I think Duop Reith definitely is the guy that grades out the best on a point per dollar basis with Portland. I think he looks really good at 4.6K, and I think it's gonna be a decision for people too. You're going to have him. You're going to have Trey Jameson cheap on the other side for Memphis when we get to that side. And then you've got Jokic on the slate with potentially no Jamal Murray. Like that becomes a question. Do you go two cheap centers? Do you go, pick one of those two cheap centers and pair them with Jokic? That's the route that I'm leading personally tonight. So I think that, it leaves that up to be kind of a bit of a tough decision what you want to go at center. I tend to think it's a two center type of night. And like you, similar thoughts. Jeremy Grant, Anthony Simons. I'm fine going back to both those guys. I like Simons better than Grant, especially like Portland has basically no guys in their backcourt right now. It's a very thin backcourt. Simons usage is going to look really nice. I'm happy to go back to the Simons in this spot. But with the low total, I mean, I wouldn't make a rule that I don't want to play Jeremy Grant and Anthony Simons if I were 150 maxing, but hand building or playing like, 3 to 5 or 3 to 10 teams or something like that. I don't know, a 209 total. Like, I don't know if I like want to load the boat with like a lot of my salary being spent on the Portland guys when we've got better studs later on.
Yeah, it kind of feels like whether it's Memphis or Portland, like doesn't matter who they're playing, they kind of find a way to like muck up the matchup and like make it not as appealing as you would think from a fantasy perspective. And obviously, this is like the prime spot of the night where your lineup is going to be flooded with both sides of this game, specifically Memphis, especially if Kennard and Conchar are able to go. Andrew Martinez, he's asking if Kennard and Conchar played and both started, would they be priority plays? Yeah, I think you mentioned like you hit on the head there. Like if they started, I would have more consideration for them. But like as a whole, you mentioned it does hurt guys like a Vince Williams, Zaire Williams, Santi Aldama, Gigi Jackson, Jordan Goodwin. So maybe I'll take like two steps back from my initial statement. I think I would prefer it more if those two guys miss. And then if Kennard or Conchar are in, I think Kennard would be the best play out of the two. I would think he starts over Jordan Goodwin, which probably makes Jordan Goodwin not the best of a play off the bench at 5.2K, and would reduce his ownership in total. But yeah, I think I would probably prefer Kennard and Conchar to be out. And the good thing is we'll have that before lock, so we can just act on that accordingly.
Yeah, we definitely will. And I forgot to mention injury news in this game, so I'll break it down really briefly as we swap over to the Memphis side. Aiton's doubtful again. It's the same injury news as last night. Scoot, Malcolm Brogdon, and Jaden Sharp are all already ruled out of this one. So would expect to see the same type of rotation from the Portland guys. And then for Memphis, John Karchar is questionable. Derrick Rose has already been ruled out. Luke Kennard's missed the last 2 games with an illness. He's got upgraded to questionable. So I think there's a decent shot that we see at least one of Kennard or Konchar play in this one. Jaren Jackson's ruled out, and same guys, Bane, Smart, like they're going to remain out for the rest of I don't know. Smart and Bane should return at some point, but I'm not confident that they're going to play the rest of the season, or if they do, like they're probably going to be similar to Jaren Jackson, where they're taking a bunch of like maintenance days too.
Yeah, I think like that's good to point out because I feel like they should have done this a long time ago. But yeah, I think it's shutdown season for sure.
Yeah, but what are your thoughts on Memphis? Obviously, a lot of it kind of hinges on like who's available. Team looks better if Kennard and Conchar are out. Both those guys are fairly cheap, so I think they definitely are worth considering, but I don't know. I wouldn't consider either of them a slam dunk play if they're in. What are your thoughts on the Memphis side?
I think if Kennard and Conchar are in, I would probably lean like my favorite being the starters, obviously. And I would suspect it to be if Kennard's in, Kennard, Zaire Williams, Vince Williams, Santi Aldama, and Trey Jameson. I kind of mentioned on the show where, Taylor Jenkins is kind of unpredictable and can throw a wrench into the lineup and make a change anytime he wants. So, like, they played so poorly. Would you be surprised if they benched Trey Jameson and then started Lamar Stevens at the 4? I wouldn't. But obviously we have late swap and this is the first game of the night, so we can adjust. But I think the starters would be mostly the ones that are in play for me. I think Vince Williams would be my favorite. I truly think he has triple double upside. I mean, I think it's kind of crazy to say, but he has been kind of doing everything for Memphis. While all the main dudes have been out, he can get the rebounds, he can get the assists, he can definitely score. So in a close game, I know he didn't do it last night, but in a close game, he probably has the highest upside of any of the Memphis dudes. And then Zaire Williams, I think, is probably, he's priced under 5K. I think he's totally fine value play as well. So I think those two would be my two favorite Memphis plays. If Kennard and Conchar are in, and then obviously if Kennard is out, then I think you have to make a case for Jordan Goodwin again. We saw him close the game and played blowouts, so that benefits both sides, in both scripts for us.
Yeah, 100%. I think if Kennard is in, he's going to start. And to your point, he should start over Jordan Goodwin. I would still consider Jordan Goodwin if Luke Kennard's in and John Conchar is out. If Conchar is in too, I still feel okay about Goodwin playing like maybe low 20s in minutes, but at the elevated price tag, he definitely doesn't become a priority. He really is only a priority if both these guys miss, or just in general we see that he's starting. So man, I don't know if you've looked at the Memphis box score at all from yesterday, but can you take a guess for me? What was Santi Aldama's plus minus in this game where Memphis lost by 30?
Oh, it can't be good. I would say like minus 20 or something.
Minus 37.
Jesus. That's crazy.
So
That's crazy.
Santi's a guy that I like, dude, that I played a ton in like summer league and stuff too, where he's taken on like a point four type of role at times too. But with Vince Williams in the role that he's in now, I just don't think he's been playing great lately. And when Memphis has had these situations where like Jaren Jackson's out and they're more in like kind of like these different like spurts of being in tank mode, he also usually hasn't gotten to like over 30 minutes. Like it's been more so like 25 to 28 minutes. And he just got absolutely worked in this last matchup. So like I don't feel amazing about Santi. I think he's probably going to be overowned. I think that he's in play on a 3-game slate with the shorthanded Memphis team, especially if some of these guys miss, but I'm not super high on Santi. I like Zaire Williams, would expect him to keep starting. Vince Williams, to your point, he's got triple double upside. He's my favorite play on Memphis if both Kennard and Conchar are in. If Kennard starts, again, he's coming off an illness that he's been really sick, missed a couple games. I just think he's going to probably play like mid to high 20s likely. Like maybe you get like just over 30, but I think high 20s is what the minutes are going to look like. So he can easily pay that off at 4-5, but I don't think he becomes like a huge priority by any means. Lamar Stevens, I need some guys out. Trey Jameson starting at center. It looks very good at 4.2K. And like I said, deciding between him and Reith, I would pick Reith over Jameson and pair him with Jokic at this point. But obviously, I think I'll get exposure to both cheap centers in this game. Another guy I want to mention too came in like 10% owned or 11% owned in the main yesterday, but Gregory Jackson, he's the game log doesn't look good, but like the role's really not any different. Like he's still probably going to play like mid 20s minutes. He can be really productive on a fantasy point per minute basis. Like I think him at potentially projected for like 10 to 15% ownership right now. I think that he's an awesome play on the Memphis side as far as someone like lower owned for a 3-game slate. So my main interest is in Jackson and Jameson and both of the Williams, and then dependent on Kennard's status for him and Goodwin is my thoughts on Memphis.
Yeah, I like that for sure. I would agree with you for sure.
All right, cool. Any other thoughts on this game? This is kind of like the Magic Pistons game of this week, where a lot of guys are popping in projections and grade out really well. So there's a lot to talk about in that game.
Yeah, let me look at the optos right now and just like kind of okay. So like just briefly glancing at the optos, it looks like you're getting more Portland, which is interesting because last night we were definitely getting more Memphis. But this is with the assumption that Conchar and Kennard are in. So I think So obviously a lot of that hinges on their status because, if those two miss from the Memphis side, it boosts, another guy like Jordan Goodwin because, you know, it's just opportunity, right? Opportunity and usage, and that's what we're looking for in DFS. So definitely keep an eye on the Q tags here. As always, we'll be in the Discord trying to break down who we think are the top plays for Memphis if the news breaks this way, and so on and so forth. So I think the Q tags are definitely important for this game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just more likely if you have both, and then you've got a bunch of guys that play mid 20s a minutes and guys that have elevated price tags because people have missed, and it just doesn't look as appealing for DFS.
100%. Yeah.
All right, next game we'll break down Nuggets at the Lakers. Obviously, Jamal Murray is the big news that we're waiting on in this one. He's questionable. Left the game against, I believe it was the Heat the other night with that ankle sprain. So I think he's going to miss this one. I think the spread indicates it likely too. KCP is also questionable for personal reasons. So if KCP were to sit, we'd probably see Justin Holiday, Julian Strother, or maybe Christian Brown start for him. They've usually been going to Justin Holiday as far as like a starter, and then Peyton Watson could see increased minutes too. So got to keep an eye out for the Denver news. I think Murray sits, like I said. LA side of things, LeBron and AD both have tags, but I don't consider those guys in any jeopardy of missing. LeBron, it's a national TV game. Like LeBron's going for 40K. It's against the Nuggets. There's no chance that LeBron's sitting this game out. So I'm expecting him in. Cam Reddish is probable, and then obviously Gabe Vincent and Jared Vanderbilt. I want to say Gabe Davis, almost like you said Lamar Jackson earlier. Some of these names, like football season, still a little bit on the brain.
Lamar Jackson. I didn't realize I said that. That's funny though.
You did. If you said it again, I was going to correct you, but you said Lamar Stevens like three more times throughout the Memphis conversation. So you corrected it, and people may not even notice till I called it out. So injury news in this one should be a close game. Again, I'm expecting Murray to sit. Again, with the spread being Denver only 1-point favorites in this one, that's part of what my thought process is too. But what are your thoughts on the Denver side? Do you think Murray plays?
Yeah, I looked at the spread last night because I kind of write the initial playbook the night before just to kind of get a general gist of what to expect the next day. And actually, the Lakers are favored. I think they opened up as favorites as -1, which surprised me. And obviously, if that's the case, you would think Jamal sits. Obviously, this is a big national television game. LeBron just needs 9 points to hit 40K club by himself. So a lot of implications on it, but obviously, if Jamal Murray misses, Jokic just becomes a super priority play for me, at least. You mentioned it, the double center builds with one cheapie and one center, whether it be Jokic or AD. That would 100% be in play for me. I think Jokic would be my favorite spend for sure if Jamal misses. But if Jamal's in, I think he's a perfectly fine GPP option. I see him popping a lot, as a pivot for Ant Simons. I see builds with just him and Ant Simons that go a little more just mid-range rather than spend up all the way up top for an AD or Jokic. So I like those two the most from the Denver side if Jamal is in. And then obviously if Jamal is out, man, generally you can make a case for Aaron Gordon and MPJ. MPJ is 7K. That just feels, even if Jamal's out, that just feels a little too overpriced for me. Obviously, he has upside if he hits his threes. Jokic is going to set him up on a silver platter for him. And I expect him to be low owned, even if Jamal Murray misses. So MPJ is fine as a last in guy, but I don't love it at that tag for sure. I think I would much prefer Aaron Gordon if Murray's out at that 6.4K price tag. Just fits your builds a lot better at that tag. And yeah, you mentioned it, KCP, if he's in, not generally a guy I play. I don't think he's really necessary on this slate. Maybe a 2-gamer if he was the only value play that you could really go to, he would be in play. But if he misses, then if Justin Holiday is a starter, I probably won't have interest. If it's Peyton Watson, which we've seen at times that they go to, then I would like that a lot. He would probably be a really strong value play for me, at least in my opinion. So I want to have some flexibility around that. But if on the Denver side, if it's a pretty clean injury report, I think for me, it's just Jokic and Jamal Murray.
Yeah, I have similar thoughts. If he ends up playing, it's mainly those two guys. Murray is a little bit too cheap at 7.6, so I like him quite a bit. Similar as you, Jokic is my favorite play in this game, or on the Denver side of thing, regardless. And also if KCP misses, he's been playing really well recently, but I mean, I don't know, 4.7. The price tag's getting up there on DK. I think that like Brown would look okay if KCP missed. I don't know. I'm not gonna be excited about playing Justin Holiday, even if he's starting. I'd maybe get a little bit of exposure to him if he was starting, but I can't imagine it's gonna be much. And I don't know. And I was gonna mention Peyton Watson too. Like if KCP misses, he could get a little bit of additional run as well. So I'd like Peyton Watson a little bit more if KCP missed. And Aaron Gordon looks awesome if Jamal Murray sits. In let's see, Murray's missed. I think it's like about 15 games or so this season, and Aaron Gordon's gone over 30 DK points in virtually all of them. In all but 2 games, he's gone over 30 points at least. 2 of them 29, so he was really close. But a bunch of 40-point games, 30-something point games. Had a huge game against Sacramento a couple weeks back, went for almost 47 DK points. So I mean, I think that he would definitely benefit quite a bit if Jamal Murray sits. So I definitely am with you too that I prefer Aaron Gordon over MPJ. I mean, the Lakers have been like a bottom 5 defense since the All-Star break too. So like I think MPJ's in play too, especially if Murray misses. But I've got a little bit of sticker shock at that price tag too.
Yeah, for sure. Let me see what he is on FanDuel. 6.8K. I mean, he's kind of similar. Does project to
Yeah.
be chalk over there, which is interesting. 30% owned, I'm seeing. So interesting the dynamic between the two. High owned on FanDuel and then lower owned on DraftKings. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, some of that could be too just site dependent, where you just get stuck at like certain
100%.
guys.
Yeah.
I don't love the roster construction over there. The other guy that I'll call it too, last time that Jamal Murray missed, he really hasn't been in the rotation at all. But Colin Gillespie played 24 minutes against the Trailblazers. I mean, Denver won by like 20 points in that one, but he played 24 minutes off the bench, had 18 real points, 4 assists, a couple boards. He had a huge game. Like he should, I mean, I don't think he's projecting for any ownership right now, obviously, because Jamal Murray's like projected in projections right now. But if you're looking for like a large field, like completely unknown guy, like I think you could take a shot on Colin Gillespie. I mean, I'm not going to do that in like a single entry type of setup or 3 max, but in the main contest, or if you're doing some 20 max stuff, like I don't mind taking a couple darts on that.
Yeah, let's set the caveat. This is with Murray out, though, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
Murray's in, uh, I've definitely lit 15 bucks on fire for probably worse, but you're just lighting money on fire if Murray's in.
I got you. I got you.
Um, All right, cool. I don't think I have any other thoughts on Denver. Again, it's a pretty straightforward team if Murray and KCP are in, and then if they're out, definitely guys are going to look a lot better. And Reggie Jackson, even on DK at 5'9", I think he looks fine. If Murray's out, I don't think he's like a slam dunk priority. Reggie Jackson's definitely a little bit cheaper on FanDuel though, so he's like if Murray was out, he's not quite a lock, but he grades out awesome over there.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, I forgot to mention Reggie. Um, He's okay. Like I don't think he's been that great when Jamal's been out. I think there's like been one occasion when him and DeAndre Jordan went off together. But apart from that, it doesn't feel like Reggie Jackson has hurt you that much when Jamal's been out. So I think my main focus would for sure be on Jokic and Aaron Gordon.
Yeah. All right, cool. Same page. All right, we'll move to the Lakers side. Lakers side obviously going to be mainly interested in the starters, but what are your thoughts on the Lakers side of things? We're going to break this game down, assuming that AD and LeBron are in, and the only real change to the Lakers rotation is just Cam Reddish being back technically, but he really didn't play last game against Washington.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think this game is interesting because I think the slate last night has a lot of parallels to this one, even though it's like way shorter. It was like Memphis, Portland, pick your studs, whether it be mid range like Ant Davis and then or Luca. And then this one, it just feels like, in a way, it feels easy to me because it's just like Portland, Memphis, and then pick your studs from this game or the next game, which we'll talk about. And then your mid range will be like kind of scattered around with like Fred VanVleet in the later game, which we'll talk about. But yeah, I think on the Lakers side, it's AD or LeBron for me. Obviously, you mentioned it. LeBron just needs 9 points to hit the 40K club by himself. There'll probably be a segment on it. Would you be surprised if they stopped the game and ran some highlight reel? I mean, 40K is a big deal. Obviously, he's already number one in points scored ever. But I don't know. It's a national television game. I wouldn't be surprised they called a timeout and LeBron gets his flowers or whatever. But because of that, I think I prefer LeBron a little more than AD. I'm seeing the ownership kind of lean towards LeBron, which anytime I get one of these guys lower owned, I prefer the lower owned guy. So I'll be monitoring it closer to lock, but it's kind of more like a coin flip for me, AD or LeBron. I think positionally AD fits better on this slate, but in my mind, LeBron on narrative games, it's hard to pass up. And man, he's looked incredible, right? Like against what he did against the Clippers, just outscoring them in the fourth was just insane. And the spread indicates that this is going to be a close one. So you have to you have to have interest in both the studs. And then I think if I were to pick a filler guy, I guess Austin Reeves would be my favorite. I wouldn't prioritize him by any means, but if you have 6,500 left and he's your last option and you can't really get exposure to AD or LeBron, I'm totally fine with it. So I think just interest on the studs for me. And then Austin Reeves is kind of like a filler mid-range play.
Yeah. Yeah, it's mainly AD and LeBron. Similar thoughts as you. I've got a slight lean towards Davis, but it's a lot tougher to get AD in there because Jokic is my favorite stud. I want to play one of the cheap centers. It's harder to get those spends without playing one of those cheap centers. So I could see AD coming in pretty low owned, but I think it's easier from a roster construction standpoint to take a cheap center plus Jokic and LeBron and go that route. So similar thoughts to you there. I prefer Reeves over D'Lo, especially at the elevated price tag. I mean, I don't know. D'Lo has not played amazing in his career against this Nuggets team, and from a defensive perspective too. I mean, this is just a little bit of speculating, but obviously D'Lo is not the world's best defender. Jokic can pick apart any defense, but I could see it being one of those games where D'Lo doesn't play down the stretch and Cam Reddish did play 20 minutes the game before against the Clippers. Something like Cam Reddish or Prince or something like that plays over him. Down the stretch, the Nuggets are a bigger team, so you potentially could play one of those bigger guys to match up with MPJ or Gordon, or if Peyton Watson's in there over KCP because KCP was sitting or something like that. I just don't think it shakes out well for D'Lo, and I could see a world where he's playing really well, so I'm not predicting he's going to get benched down the stretch, but it wouldn't stun me. So I don't know. I don't like D'Lo. I think that Reeves is okay. Rui's been playing pretty well. I like Rui. The offense as a whole with the starting lineup that did really well in the playoffs last year. Who would have thought Darvin Ham keeps sticking with the starters that got you to the Western Conference Finals instead of starting Taurean Prince and Cam Reddish over these guys? But what do I know? I'm hosting a YouTube show. I'm not coaching an NBA team. So I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Hayes is going to play the backup minutes to AD with Christian Wood out. Max Christie could get a couple minutes here or there. Cam Reddish, he could basically DNP or he could play 20 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked either way. I don't think he's a crazy dart in large field stuff. And Dinwiddie and Prince are cheap. So if they hit a lineup or two, it's fine. They're obviously not priorities though.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think that wraps up Lakers side easily.
Okay. All right, cool. Final game then. We're going to break down the Rockets at the Phoenix Suns. So total in this one is going to be 233.5. Phoenix is 9.5 point favorites at home for Houston. Tari Eason remains out. So no major injury news on the Houston side of things. Bradley Beal's expected back for the Phoenix Suns. He's probable going into this one. Eric Gordon is still questionable for this one. So no idea if EG is going to play or not. I feel like he's very much 50-50. And Bradley Beal being back, especially if even one of these two guys being back hurts, I'd say probably Grayson Allen the most. Nurkic is also taken on more of a playmaking role with these guys out. KD and Booker picked up the slack. I mean, missing both those guys, Booker's had to have the scoring workload and then also facilitate the offense as well. So Saban Lee, I would expect to not be in the rotation anymore. What are your thoughts on this game, Glock? We'll start with the Houston side, then go to Phoenix.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of ownership on Houston, which makes me feel not the best for sure. 40% own Jalen Green. I mean, to me, it kind of feels like a chase. But like I said, he did go off last game, and he is in that price range where if you have 6,300 left, 6,500, it's like him or Austin Reeves. I feel like I would pick the lower owned Austin Reeves, but can't blame you if you go Jalen Green. Fred VanVleet projecting for a high 20s, 30-ish% ownership. I think he's my favorite play from Houston, honestly. Would much prefer him over Jalen Green if I had the salary. I just think he has more outs of like doing more things like, rebounding, assisting, while Jalen Green is more of a raw scorer, So I would prefer Fred VanVleet for sure on the Houston side. Sengun feels like a strong tournament play, but I think I just prefer other centers on this slate. Like you said, there's cheap centers that are really strong plays from Portland, Memphis, and then there's Jokic and AD, right? And so Sengun will obviously make you a lot different, but I don't think I'm going to go there. And probably my second favorite, Dylan Brooks, 30%. No, thank you. That'll be a fade for me. And then I was going to say my second favorite play on Houston, Cam Whitmore, probably. He's been a tough guy to project, but 4.3K has some motivation coming out from last game because him and Booker kind of got into it. Played 27 minutes, I believe. Let me see here. I pulled up 27 minutes, and put up 14 raw and 8 rebounds. I think he is a strong option to just be a nice value play tonight. So I think honestly, Fred VanVleet and Cam Whitmore would be my favorite plays from Houston. Curious on what your take is.
Yeah, those are gonna be my favorite 2 plays for Houston as well. If, people wanna chase Jalen Green from the other night, he started off ridiculous from the field, but he's been getting benched at times down the stretch for Amen Thompson. Like, I don't wanna pay almost 7K for a guy that, has I guess he's only 6'3". The price tag's okay, but I still feel like he's a little bit of a chase. Like, I don't think he's a lock to close. He'd been consistently projected more in like the high 20s in his projections, as opposed to being projected for, I think he's projected for about, we've got him at 32.2 points right now for his RPS projection. So, I mean, he grades out fine, but I think he's going to be a little over-owned, people chasing him. So I think that he's okay in a vacuum, but over-owned. Fred VanVleet's still a little bit too cheap. Like him, he played well in this matchup recently. These teams just played each other. Like Cam Whitmore, I mean, 4-3, it's just a nice price tag. Should play around 20 minutes. Has the upside to play more if he plays well. If he doesn't play so well, like he could play teens in minutes too. But it's also shooting guard and small forward eligible, so just really easy to fit your lineup construction. I'm not interested in a chalky Dylan Brooks either. I can't say that on like 20 teams that I might not get like 1 or 2 of them, but definitely not going out of my way to play Dylan Brooks on this slate. I will say, Jabari Smith, he's too expensive. Like, again, it's a 3-game slate. He's almost maybe such a bad play. He's a good play in like the main contest because of how low he's going to be. And it's just sometimes hard to find starters in single digits on these short slates. But I will say, Alperen Sengun, I mean, he has not played as well recently. I think it's a solid matchup against Nurk, though. And with all the good center options, both cheap center options, AD, Jokic, like he's not going to be high owned at all. So I think that Sengun's definitely an interesting GPP play. Like he's got 50, 60 plus point ceiling when he's on. This is one of the higher totals on the slate. I mean, there's like a 30-point difference in total in this game versus the Memphis and Portland game. So I think Sengun's definitely interesting for tournaments. Thompson's okay at this price tag. He's going to be unowned at 5.6, but he could play 25, 30 minutes and close over Jalen Green. So I think that he's going to be super low, but he's viable in large field stuff.
Yeah, 100%. And you hit it on the head. Like anytime you can get a starter on any short, like 2 to 3 gamer slate that's like 10 to 15%, like that's good because like you're going to have all this chalk condensing on this first Memphis Portland game. Like dudes are going to be over 30 to 40% owned. And so really like you just need to mix in 1 or 2, at least these lower owned dudes, which will be in these 2 later games and, just see where it falls. So, yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you for sure.
Yeah. Man, and Phoenix just does not look amazing to me with Beal probable and expected to play in this one, obviously, and Gordon potentially playing too. Like I'm not excited about the Phoenix side of things. I'm mainly just interested in the 2 studs. I'll give the rest of my thoughts in a minute, but what are your thoughts on the Phoenix side of things?
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Bradley Beal probable to return. That just eats away usage from the remaining dudes, right? I mean, probably one guy is gonna get there, but we always talk about on these shows, right? Try to reduce the amount of guessing, and the amount of guessing you have on the Denver Nuggets if Jamal Murray misses is 0. Like Jokic is going to get all the usage, right? But on Phoenix, you're going to have to guess, is it going to be a Devin Booker game? Is it going to be a Kevin Durant game? Is it going to be a Yusuf Nurkic game? Bradley Beal could even go off. He's been playing well before his injury. So I tend to agree with you. I think in an MME format, you have to mix in the 2 studs, Devin Booker and Kevin Durant. I think Devin Booker would be my favorite, just because of position eligibility, and he's a little bit cheaper. So the ownership will reflect that. It does look like Kevin Durant's going to be lower owned than Devin Booker, so just keep that in mind. But yeah, I mean, I think just the 2 studs are in play for me from Phoenix. Like I said, I think this slate is pretty simple, like Portland, Memphis, and then you're going to have to decide which studs you want to play from which game. So me personally, I'll prefer to stick into the Lakers Denver game for my studs. But I don't, I can't blame you, obviously, if you're a Devin Booker stan or Kevin Durant fan. So yeah, that's kind of my.
Oh, you're a Luka guy. You can blame people if they want to go with front running Devin Booker. You're too nice,
for sure. For sure. I mean, I've played Devin Booker a lot in DFS. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in the playoffs, he was last year's playoffs. He was incredible. Don't get me wrong. But when he's up against my Mavs, I ain't touching him for sure. So yeah.
If I could insert like the Luka staring up at Booker at the free throw line gif into the chat right now, I would.
Oh,
Maybe
man,
you can do
so
that
good.
on YouTube. I don't think you can, but
So good.
I'm not tech savvy enough to do that. But similar thoughts to you, man. I mean, Booker, KD, like they look fine. I'm not excited about them. Honestly, I think Beal probably looks the best to me on the Phoenix side of things. We've seen Beal, even when he's missed time, they've just kind of thrown him in there and played like 30 plus minutes in a lot of different occasions. So I don't know, especially if Eric Gordon's out, like Beal could essentially get like the backup point guard run essentially. So I like that from like an increase in usage if Gordon sits. If Gordon's in, he looks okay at 4-4. Like these guys are all appropriately priced. None of them excite me. Royce O'Neal should move back to the bench with Bradley Beal, and he's priced up, so I wouldn't consider him. Bobo's going to be low owned. Like, I mean, I could see them like DNPing Drew Eubanks and Bobo being the backup 5. I mean, Nurk's always game to get in foul trouble, and you could get 15 to 20 minutes out of Bobo. I don't think he's a crazy like large field low owned play, but not a priority. But that's basically the only thing else that I can add to the Phoenix equation.
Yeah, I think for Bobo, you want Eric Gordon to be out. I think he gets a little more interesting if Eric Gordon's out for sure.
Yeah, that's fair.
I know last slate we got Bradley Beal out that the Phoenix was on. We got Bradley Beal out and Eric Gordon, and Bobo was kind of like the chalkier pivot option. He didn't do well there, but I mean, that's Bobo in a nutshell, right? Like he's either going to go off and break the slate or he's not going to do much, right? So that's kind of the things you're looking for on a short slates. And yeah, I think Bobo would definitely be in play, but only if Eric Gordon is out for me.
Yeah. All right, should we do plays of the day to wrap up? It's sometimes hard to find a low owned guy for the play of the day on a 3-gamer, but hit the people with your play of the day, Glock.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a cop out, but like I ran 150 lineups before we jumped on. And let me see here. Like I'm getting like double the Anthony Davis from Jokic just because I think, you're saving 1.2K by playing Davis. And so I think the optimizer just likes that more. And it's clear that 1.2K matters. So yeah, Jokic will be owned. I think there's a chance AD could come in higher owned, and because of that, my play of the day will be big Jokic.
Really going on a limb there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a 3-game slate. I know it feels like kind of a cop out. It feels like a cop out, but I just love Jokic so much. Like tonight against AD, big spot, national television game. Ever since the break, like the Nuggets have looked so good. I think this line is like completely disrespectful, even if Jamal Murray is in or out. So I'm just fully aboard the Jokic train. If I was MMEing, I'd be extremely overweight. So that's kind of, I know he's going to be owned, but I just have that strong of a feeling of Jokic tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. Jokic is my favorite spend up on the slate. I almost went with Gigi Jackson as my play of the day. I like him low owned, but like I said, I think Jamal Murray sits, so I'm going to make Aaron Gordon my play of the day. I mean, it's averaging over 30 DK points per game without Jamal Murray this season. big national TV game against the Lakers. I love Aaron Gordon. He should be probably a little bit higher owned if we get the Murray news early, but right now I'm seeing him projected for only close to like 10% owned on a short 3-game slate, and that'll likely go up if Murray sits. But I'm going to plan for it. Hopefully, I'm hoping we get the Murray news late, and I'm planning on him being out. And I love Aaron Gordon tonight.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you could play those two together.
100%.
Like, there's got to be builds that work out where it's like a Jalen Green and Jokic, and then like instead of Jalen Green, I know he's a guard, but I would much rather play Aaron Gordon than Jalen Green. So I think that's two nice play of the days in one lineup for sure.
There we go. We're definitely on Big T's Nuggets tonight. So if you guys aren't members, sign up with code RPS15 for 15% off. Your first payment can be a month, could be a week. Never tried out a DFS site before. Tries out RPS15 for 15% off your first payment. Can be just for the DFS side, or if you want to add on Saber Sim, bets package, whatever it is. Would love to have you. And get in the Discord. We'll have the cores up probably about a half hour before lock. We got a little ways till lock, so we'll watch the rest of these UFC fights and root home some winners there, and then we'll get the core plays up a little bit closer to lock. Always fun to talk hoops with you.
Likewise. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and good luck tonight.
All right, sounds good. Good luck, everyone. Yep.